Hello, I'm Kads and welcome to today's video. So today we're going to be taking a shot at the Soul Chase tournament that has returned once again, and we're going to see if we can get ourselves a legendary tome and potentially the dub. But first, I do want to address the elephant in the room, which is the ongoing Pogo event, which obviously we're not pulling for in this case. So a Pogo event, or pull one get one as I like to call it, Pogo, is one of the best ways to get legendaries in the game, just because if you're paying attention to where you are relative to Mercy, you can get a lot of value for a lot less shards. And so the way I approach it is that if I'm within 100 or less of Mercy, then I will pull those up to 100 shards, get my double legendary, and call it a day. But in this particular instance, I'm 58 shards into Ancients, and so I have 142 away. So we are 40 shy of my threshold for participating in Pogo events. So I'm going to pass on this one and wait until a better opportunity in the future, because the Pogos will be here. It's not going to be, it doesn't have to be this one. It could be the next one. I'm not in a rush. I'm not in a hurry. So I like to make sure that my shard pulls are efficient at all times. It's also worth noting that they did accompany this with a summon rush that does have boosted points for ancient shards. So there's a little bit more of a benefit to doing it during this Pogo event, which is kind of nice. So it's not just middle of the week with no events going on. They added these bonus summon rushes to go with these certain midweek pulling summon sessions or whatever. And so I do like that aspect of it, even though I'm not partaking in this particular one. And the rewards are quite juicy, but that is not what we're here for today. Our focus here today is on the Soul Chase tournament. So let's take a look at the Soul Chase tournament. The rewards are the same, and unfortunately for me, it's only been 4 weeks since the last one. The gap between the first one and the previous one was 6 weeks, so I had a little bit more time to accrue some of the Soulstones, but in this case, it's only been a month, so 4 weeks, and so I have proportionally less, which we'll see in a few seconds here. But the one thing I wanted to point out here is that I have like the best group in the world. 365 is the top guy, which we are absolutely going to crush, hopefully. So considering that it's only been 4 weeks since the last one, I do think I'm going to aim for the 680 as far as what my expectations are. If we get super lucky, maybe we can get to the 1000 for the double tome, but I'd be happy to walk away with at least one legendary tome, because as the tome chaser that I am, an opportunity like this is hard to pass up. And since we're talking about the milestones, I can pop up the spreadsheet here that has the breakdown of all of the different combinations of rarity and rank that you can get from the souls from each of the different soulstones, and how they equate to in the current iterations of the Soul Chase tournament, as well as the Soulstone Rush. As usual, this spreadsheet will be linked in the description box down below, so you can check it out for yourself and kind of level set as far as the expectations or average points you're going to get for each of these different soulstones if you're pulling during this one or a future Soulstone Chase. So as I already mentioned, my target for this session is to at least get to 680 points. That way we can get the first legendary tome. But if we happen to get lucky with the Immortal specifically, then I can see if we can push a little bit harder to get all the way out to the 1050 for the second legendary tome. And of course, the last thing to mention is how many soulstones I have accrued over the past 4 weeks. So we are up to 70 immortal soulstones. I do like to pull in sets of 10 to keep it even as far as the immortal coins return here. We have 8 on the immortal soulstones, and we have 1 on the eternal. So the 1 eternal did come from finishing the UDK Titan event. I was able to reach that 1500 milestone. I think I actually hit exactly where I intended to hit, which was minus 100. Relative to the bonus of 250. So I got all the way out to 1650, meaning I probably could have skipped the last few sets of events, but nonetheless, it was stuff I wanted to do anyways, so it didn't really matter. But I digress. So this is the smattering of soulstones we have for this evening. And for comparison, the previous one, which had a 6-week gap between the first and the second one, as I mentioned earlier, I had a total of 120 immortal soulstones. I had 11 immortal soulstones, and I had 1 eternal soulstone. But the caveat there was that one of the immortals and the eternal soulstone came from faction wars, so that's not necessarily a regular occurrence as far as acquisition of those soulstones, and so it's hard to extrapolate from that as far as getting one every 6 weeks, for example. And unfortunately, we're kind of in the same circumstance here, where it's just, instead of faction wars, it was the UDK Titan event, which is obviously will not be a monthly occurrence, and so I cannot guarantee that in the next one, hopefully it's in 6 weeks, but maybe again it will be in 4, that we probably won't have 1 eternal soulstone, and will be slightly less on the immortals as well. I think the cool thing to note here is that we're kind of spot on as far as the rate, and so 4 weeks relative to 6 weeks is 2/3, and 2/3 of 120 is 80, so we're at 73, so slightly less, slightly below my previous average for 6 weeks acquisition. So essentially what I'm saying is that we're kind of getting roughly the same amount of mortal soulstones over the same time period. So roughly that equates to about 120 over 6 weeks, or 20 per week. And that includes getting them from Hydra Clan Boss, getting them from events and tournaments, and all those types of sources, as well as the monthly daily login reward as well if you're in the super end game of the calendar. So enough of the long rambly preamble. Let's get into the summons here. And just to level set, as we summon the first 10 pop, the average per soulstone per mortal is around 6.7. Let's round up to 7. So if we're getting more than 70, that's a good 10 pop. And if we're getting less than 70, which we did in this case, which is, I think it was 47, it is a below average set. So it looks like we got a couple of rare ones, epics that I'm probably not going to use. 2-star Solus, unfortunately I don't have them. So yeah, let's keep it going. Hopefully we can do a little bit better. That is definitely not better. 41. So again, below the average. 2-star Holstering, don't have that champion, so that's not going to be very useful. Bunch of rares. 2-star Spider, not a champion that I would use, and looks like that's going to be it for this 10 pop. Oh, hit the wish list, but it's a 1-star on Frozen Banshee. We're kind of creeping along here, not looking too hot as far as getting all the way up to nearly 700 for another 46, another low roll, so we're not going to expect much from this 10 pop either. Ren, champion I will not be using. Deliana, 2-star, that could be useful. I've thought about using her for one of the secret rooms, like Force HP, but I was able to beat that with a different assortment of champions, so I might not end up needing her at all. But nonetheless, pretty neat to have her sold, just in case she comes in handy in the future. Noichi, a champion I do not use. Prandar, I know he's like the beefcake of a champion, don't really use him either, so not much going to be useful for the epics in this 10 pop. Let's keep it going. 151, there we go. All right, that's going to be something juicy somewhere in here, so that's exactly what we want. So now we got something much higher than the average. Must be the 6-star rare there. 6-star Bombardier, which is unfortunate that it wasn't something a little bit juicier, but nonetheless, we're focusing more here on the points, and I'll definitely take 150 points. 2-star Samson, I think I actually have that one already, or maybe even higher for him. I don't have the champion, obviously, so I can definitely sell that one and get some coins back. 4-star Maeve is interesting, but I definitely don't use her. 2-star Skull Crusher, I do have him. He's retired. I used to use him in the Demon Lord Clan Boss, but I might just ascend him just because, or awaken him just because, but not much else. Venomage is definitely one of my favorite epics in the game, but I think I have like a 3-star on her, so that's going to be sold as well. All right, so the last 10 pop before we have to make some space, and woof, we are way back to the start with 19, so this is going to be absolute dog. So I'm not going to expect much here. Lordly Legionary, do not use him. I guess he was like okay for Fire Knight back in the day, but I'm gonna go make some space and we'll get right back into the polls. All right, space has been made. We are at around 300 points, so unfortunately only halfway, but let's keep it going. We've got 20 more mortals to pull, and then we'll dip into the higher tier and see where we can get with this Soul Chase. 65, that is bang on average basically, so that's not bad, but it's not great either. I guess it's bang on average. Battle Sage, don't use her. 3-star Rhodos. That is unfortunate because I have literally purchased my way through just slowly grinding out the soul coins. I've purchased a 3-star soul for Rhodos, so that is really unfortunate. So that one's actually going to be sold because I don't need it. And I have enough essence right now to buy the 4-star. I'm just waiting for it to come into the shop. So that is a fat rip to get a dupe of that I've worked so many months, so much time, so much effort into getting. But last 10 pop here, 43 for the Ender. Looking like, I guess, below average, so I'm not going to expect much here. It's probably a 1-star and Legendary. Helicath, oof. Story time for another video perhaps, but I do not have the Helicath. I did miss the fusion because I made a really silly mistake. But yep, do not have him, but 1-star nonetheless is pretty neat if I ever do pull him. All right, so we are now out of Mortal Soulstones. We're going to leave the extra 3 and roll it over to the next Soul Chase tournament. We are currently at 412 points in the Soul Chase, and so that means I have achieved the Void Shard, but we're still shy of the Legendary Tomes. We're going to keep going a little bit harder just to make sure we can get at least that far. I'm going to employ the same strategy I did last time where we're going to pull the Eternal first, just because it has the highest, or the highest likelihood to get the highest amount of points you can get as far as the soul quality. So we're going to see what that one gives us, and then if it's not enough, which will most likely be the case, then we'll start dipping into the immortals slowly, and hopefully we can get all the way out to that 680. At this point, I can realistically say that we're probably not going to get to that 1050 for the second tome, but you never know, things could happen. But realistically speaking, I think we're going to target the 680 and walk away with that. So let's see what all of that grinding in the UDK Titan event has provided us. 135, that means it's a 5-star epic. Please be someone good, and it is not. It is Golden Reaper, who is like a slightly better Haikatoon champion that most people don't have because she's a void epic. So that is unfortunate. I mean, you know, could have been anyone, so you never know, you can get lucky, but nonetheless, that is quite unfortunate. So the good news is that's not the end of the world. 135 points is still a decent chunk, and so we're just under 550 points, meaning that we're 130-ish away from the legendary tome. And since immortal soulstones do have an average of around 40 per pull, that means we have a decent chance to get all the way out to 680. So let's get it started here with the immortals and see what we can garnish. 30. Pretty good, I would say. It's somewhere in the middle, close to the average. That's kind of what we need here. A 5-star Painkeeper. I don't really use her in any content. I think she's kind of has some weird gear on that I may have used in one of those challenge tournaments when I needed her like for healing or something and cooldown reduction. But I guess that's a slight upgrade to my Painkeeper. All right, and the next one is 135, another 5-star epic, if I'm not mistaken, based on that point. And it is Fang. I thought it was a spider. I was like, oh, we got spider again. But it is Fang Cleric, who's like a Dark Elf Reviver. But once you have, well, I guess I use Rian the Conjurer as my Reviver for Faction Wars. Who's a Doom Tower champion, but I guess if you're really desperate, he can be the one. But as far as awakening him, I'm not sure that that's something that I would want to do either. Well, believe it or not, that was way above the average, and so we're actually there. I think that's gotten us the legendary tome, so I'm probably gonna just save the rest of the immortals, because 6, even if we pulled the average of around 40, there's most likely I'm not going to get to 1,000, so that would be a very stretchy, lofty goal. So we're not going to push it. We're not going to push the luck. I think we've been pretty fortunate today overall, and so we're going to walk away with the intended goal of the legendary tome at 680 points. Plus, as I did mention before, I am in a very low group, and so this has probably guaranteed me the top spot. And so we also get some legendary, another legendary tome. I forgot about that. As well as some legendary 6-star Relentless gear, which is fantastic. So sorry to Cartriv, but unfortunately I am taking the dub on this one, so I get to walk away with that sweet Relentless gear. All right, so that's going to do it for this Soulstone summoning session for this current iteration of the Soul Chase tournament. I'm actually kind of curious what you guys would do in my situation, so be sure to let me know in the comment section down below. But would you sell this 3-star Rotos Soul? Because I am in the fortunate position that I do have a duplicate of Rotos. But I'm kind of, I mentioned this in a previous video, but I'm holding out in case I get a second dupe, and because I would really like to +2 my Rotos, and then I wouldn't really need a second awakening for him. But that could also take 3 years, because who knows if and when I'm ever going to pull another Rotos. So let me know what you guys would do. Would you build a second Rotos, or would you hold out like I am and wait for a second dupe in order to go for the +2, and thus I wouldn't need a duplicate of his soul? Oh, and before I let you guys go, I do want to mention that my particular strategy when it comes to the Mystic Market is that I do spend all of my Immortal Soul coins on Essence. So we're going to max that out there and buy all 43 of those, which is a good stack. This is how I am able to upgrade my champions. I don't necessarily get lucky every time. I just kind of slowly build them up from sessions like these, as well as just whatever you get from the top rewards and events and tournaments. And so slowly but surely, I get a decent amount of essence over time. Same thing applies for the Eternal Soul Essence. I just haven't converted it yet because no one is even close to 5-star. Well, I guess Rotos will be. Once I get the 4-star for him, he'll be close to the 5-star. But once that comes around, once that gets a bit closer, more realistic, because I'm going to have to wait for him to come back into the shop after I get the 4-star. But once that comes around, then I'll convert to these to get, I think it's 100 to get a 5-star Rotos, which would be absolutely insane. But after that, I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to be doing with the Eternal Soul Essence just yet. But anyways, if you enjoyed the video, then be sure to hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching and have a good one.